Jerry Jones loves the circus, man. He loves it. And so he gives Zeke his money. And what do you make of all of it, Bill? And thank you for joining us, by the way.
My pleasure. I have a lot of thoughts on Chris Jericho at the Longhorn Steakhouse. We can leave those for another time, I suppose. But I think absolutely Jerry Jones wants to be the center of attention. Why not make this happen the day before the NFL season starts when everyone's reading about the NFL? Why wouldn't Jerry Jones wait to make this move, which I think makes sense for both sides in the long run, at the exact moment when everybody is paying the most attention to the NFL?
Why does a team that has won 3 playoff games in 22 years, all of them in the wild card round, fascinate us so?
Because I think we all grew up with the Cowboys being good at one point or another. They've been consistently either a Super Bowl winning team or a team that's right in that discussion. So many of my friends growing up in the 90s became Cowboys fans, even though I was living in New York. I think that's true in a lot of places.
The Steelers have too, and they're not like this. They're not that. And the Steelers have had success recently, unlike the Cowboys.
I suppose, but I mean, I think there's something, everything's bigger in Texas. You have this enormous cult, I guess, around the Cowboys, and I think they're fun either to be a fan of or to kind of put down and realize, that you can poke a hole in the Cowboys really easily.
Bill, I know he's not making the decisions by himself, but do we not give Jerry Jones enough credit for being a pretty good general manager when you consider Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, DeMarcus Lawrence?
3 playoff wins in 22 years.
Zeke, Dak Prescott, all those guys. I mean, he's pretty good at his job, no?
They're good at drafting. I think they have an issue where they fall in love with their players, and unfortunately they hand out some contracts that aren't really all that great. You think about someone like a Marion Barber, where you find him in the 3rd round or 4th round, that's a good pick. You pay him like he's a starting running back or a possible star running back, that's another story. They've handed out a lot of contracts like that in years past, and they run their cap in a really strange way too. So drafting, great. What happens next? Not always all that great.
The Bill Barnwell Show every Monday and Thursday. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. A lot of good football information in there. The Chargers and Melvin Gordon, what's something there that people aren't noticing? What's something there that we're not understanding as laymen?
The Chargers hold a harder line on contracts than just about anybody else in the league. Remember, this was the same team that held out Joey Bosa for a couple months because they didn't want to give him the right offset language in his contract. They are really stubborn, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. They're maybe outside of Phillip Rivers. I don't think they're willing to go against their principles for anybody on that roster.
But, Bill, what do you make of them saying that Melvin Gordon isn't worth what he's asking and then asking teams for a first-rounder, reportedly?
I think that's what you do when you hope you run into a dumb team. And I think given what the Texans have done over the last couple of weeks, I would do that too. I'd ask for the moon and see if I can get it.
How good is Philadelphia? Their offensive line a couple of years ago is the best I've seen, and then they were hurt last year. How good is Philadelphia, as Doug Peterson is out here saying that this is the deepest team he's had?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think you look at the backup offensive line for the Eagles, it's better than the Dolphins' actual starting offensive line, and it might not even be all that close. This is a team I think is the deepest team in football. Obviously, they have that one weak point. I think about Independence Day. I think about, Randy Quaid flying into that one weak spot in the Starship.
Up yours! I'm pretty sure he screamed, up yours, as he went up into the spaceship.
I think he screamed, I'm back.
Did he?
Yeah.
I think he might have screamed both, but that Carson Wentz is that one spot. If Carson Wentz gets hurt, of course they're in serious trouble. But everything else about that team says I think they're the best team in the NFC.
Are the Jets good?
Yeah, I think the Jets are going to be a wild card team. I really think that I don't love their long-term plan. I don't love the contracts they've handed out, but Le'Veon Bell's good. C.J. Mosley is good. Even if you give those guys a ton of money, you want them on your roster.
How does Jadeveon Clowney not go for more?
Because the Texans had no leverage. Anyone who wanted to trade for Jadeveon Clowney after July 15th could not sign him to a long-term extension, which reduced the absolute value you can get for a guy like that. The Chiefs, when they traded for Frank Clark, had to give up a 1 and a 2, or 1 and a 3, I think, because they were going to get the opportunity to sign him to a long-term contract. Once you lose that leverage, you lose a lot of the value in trading for Jadeveon Clowney.
Did the Dolphins get more for Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills than the Raiders got for Khalil Mack?
It's about the same. I mean, I think it depends on where those picks come. You figure the Texans are going to be a good football team. I think the Raiders made that trade with the idea in mind that the Bears were not going to be a good football team, and obviously they ended up being wrong. So I think it's just really in the same ballpark.
Would you like to hear Dennis Quaid saying something very startling about his brother, Randy Quaid? Would you like to hear that?
I would love that.
Give us a wacky fact about your brother, Randy.
Oh, he can eat an apple in one bite.
It's shocking, right? It's shocking.
You okay,
correct?
Bill?
Are you okay? Are you shocked? Are you right now unable to answer because you're shocked?
Do you remember when there was a quote a couple of years ago about Vince Wilfork where I think it was in the Patriots press box and it said he just eats whole chickens? They didn't specify that he wasn't eating the bones or like the parts that you don't
No,
eat.
that can't be true.
And it's Vince Wilfork, so
be.
you're like, I could kind of believe that. I could kind of buy that.
I'm with you, Barnwell.
What do you mean whole chickens?
Thank
Like
you.
he's eating whole chickens like chicken wings? He's just
Blowing feathers out of his mouth?
I buy it.
the Texans, do they deserve the wrath they're getting?
Yes, in the long term, yes. In the short term, I think they're better. I think they have a better team, a better laid-out team than the team they had 2 weeks ago. But I think you sacrifice all those draft picks with Bill O'Brien, who does not appear to care about the future of the Texans. That's going to come back to bite them in the years to come.
The Bill Barnwell Show every Monday and Thursday. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. A lot of good football information there. How soon will Daniel Jones be starting, and what weaknesses could you have seen this preseason when he seems to have had a pretty perfect preseason?
He looked great. He's playing against the backups. I think he had 3 drives all postseason against number one defenses, and he scored on one of those drives. It was all against the Bengals, who not exactly a great defense to begin with. I think with Daniel Jones, I think you see him maybe against Washington in week 4. You want to give him a winnable home game to start his career. I could see him coming in week 3 if they're losing to the Bucs, and then starting week 4 against Washington.
What kind of player, quarterback, do you think Kyler Murray is going to be?
I think it's going to be great. I think as long as he can stay healthy, and I think Cliff Kingsbury has to sort of adjust the air rate to keep him healthy against NFL defenses. But I think all the talent in the world, and I think they're going to be a much faster team than they've shown in the preseason. A lot more no huddle, a lot more tempo.
A lot of people raving about Lamar Jackson in camp, saying that he's going to throw the ball a lot and throw it well. Plus, he might break the rushing record for quarterbacks. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think, again, it's going to be health. I think they're going to come out with a scheme that really we haven't seen in the NFL in a long time, maybe even ever. A lot more option stuff than people are expecting. I think a lot more sort of creativity in the running game, and we're going to see how sustainable that is. I hope he pulls it off. I think the world of Lamar Jackson, I think he's a great player, but again, I think we're just asking more out of him as a runner than any quarterback in NFL history.
Outside of healthy Aaron Rodgers, how will the Packers look different tomorrow night offensively?
Offensively, I think you're going to see a scheme that's going to really match what they want to do on offense. You're going to see a lot more pick plays, a lot more plays that are going to look similar in the first moment or two after the snap, a lot more of that Rams influence. So you're going to see them under center quite a bit, and you're going to see some play action. I think there'll be some hiccups here and there, but I do think we're going to see a lot of stuff that maybe Packers fans haven't seen in a long time.
How often have you seen tanking as overt as what the Dolphins are doing a few days before the season?
In the NFL, I mean, I think we saw it with the Browns a couple of years ago. I don't know that it worked quite the way they planned, but I think it's a new sort of thing in the NFL. Pretty much you see the Cowboys in the 80s maybe when Jimmy Johnson took over, but I think realistically it's not a great idea because you're really looking for one pick. It's not quite as effective as the NBA in Major League Baseball.
Pats in the Super Bowl?
Well, I would feel dumb if I said no and then they made it as opposed to saying yes and having them not make it. So, yeah, of course.
All right, very good. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to play back those 7 seconds just so that people can hear how our football expert got disoriented by the most obvious of results, which is, of course, we're going to analyze it all season, and at the end, a 43-year-old Tom Brady will be holding the trophy. The Bill Barnwell Show every Monday and Thursday. Listen wherever you get your podcast. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, guys.